Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends where we are living. It's a pleasure for me to give this webinar and to stay with all of you during this time. And particular because, well, I am at ISQOLS since near the beginning and I love this organization and I think it's a very good idea to have this series of webinars. Yes, today we will speak about the transmission of research results to the field of public policies for the improvement of quality of life. Yes, I will tell you my ideas about this topic and then we can speak about it and even we can use the chat to send questions that I will after read, yes? Okay. I don't know, Sheil, what can we do to share this? I don't know if the people are seeing what appeared, the name of all the peoples in the screen.
Right. Everyone should be able to...
Perhaps we need to close this. I don't know if this is possible. Okay, I think I did it. Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, okay. In this presentation, we will speak about three concepts: research results, quality of life, and public policies, and the connections between these three concepts. First of all, we need to remember that the transmission process of research results in the field of public policy reveals various peculiarities. In order to approach this study, it ought first to be pointed out that in the academic field, for instance, power mechanisms have been observed which have traditionally institutionalized certain topics and certain actors, making others invisible during this process. Furthermore, the last decades have revealed the role of politics in research production, which may be understood as a chance that the research results might be taken into account and exert an influence on public policy decisions, oriented towards the people's life improvement, though this does not always happen in practice. We need to review the subject of power in the scientific field and the researchers' freedom to make further progress in the definition of the concept of public policy. On that basis, we will study the possible ways in which research results may be reflected in the arena of political decisions by identifying its obstacles and its facilitators and proposing options to bridge the gap in order to improve people's quality of life. So let's speak first about quality of life. Well, the study of quality of life refers to the material conditions and to the psychosocial conditions of people's lives. The latter based on experience and on personal assessment, including positive and negative measures and a global view of a person's life. For Good and Will, in the last part of the 20th century, quality of life not only included the constituents of well-being, but also its determinants, and thus connected the personal dimension, what we can call the micro level, with the social one. This is to say the macro level. Quality of life, considering Ferris, pointed out that is conditioned by the social structure considered in terms of demographic features, cultural traits, and psychosocial characteristics of the community, and those of its private and public institutions operating within that context. These authors say that the demographic foundations and institutional structures of society provide the social environment for an individual's living conditions. But quality of life is the perception each person has on his or her own place in life, within a cultural context and the system of value he or she conforms to, as related to expectations, interest, and achievements. Quality of life is currently defined as a multidimensional concept comprising a number of domains that people consider and evaluate differently according to the importance they attach to each domain in their lives. This definition incorporates both a quantitative, this is to say an objective approach, what people have and can be observed directly, and at the same time the qualitative, subjective approach, what people feel and can be observed but in an indirectly manner. So quality of life becomes an outlook which includes both the traditionally called objective living conditions and the so-called subjective experiences, working on two levels, micro and macro, thus allowing the construction of a new outlook involving respect for human rights and integration of the more personal experiences to the political and community spheres. So now we will speak about the process of the knowledge production. What are the forms of knowledge productions? Well, some authors have identified two dimensions. One is the strictly scientific and academic knowledge. And the other one is the participation of social and political actors in the aforementioned production. Research and policy can be conceptually distinguished by their goals and their methods. So we all know that research produces knowledge and policy produces the change of a practice. What about the conceptual use and the instrumental use of knowledge? To speak about it, we will go a lot of years ago, 1979, Nathan Kaplan. He said in this opportunity that the conceptual use of knowledge includes the gradual shifts in terms of policy makers' awareness and reorientation of their basic perspectives, which involve important policy matters and are mostly associated with macro-level decisions. Speaking about instrumental use, it is associated with micro-level decisions, that is to say, with the day-to-day policy issues, involving administrative policy issues pertaining to bureaucratic management and efficiency, rather than substantive public policy issues. But the mechanisms of power in the field of research are particularly because the university structure has been historically based on scientific knowledge, and the science system is formulated through basic research, which allows the development of knowledge, while at the same time highlighting perhaps the utility and social relevance of science. The institutionalization of knowledge privileges certain types of research and certain types of theories, which disseminate notion of truth that people learn, naturalize, and reproduce. What about the freedoms that researchers really have to work every day? Well, taking into consideration the two precedent situations, we think about researchers' actual possibilities to decide, and most importantly, the degree of freedom they may enjoy when deciding upon their research topics. Our starting point is the idea that the only possible access to knowledge is through freedom, either built with a social and cultural research context or on the basis of each researcher's individual achievements. Well, in this case, when we are referring to freedom, we follow the lines of the Nobel Prize, Amartya Sen, who proposes that freedom should be focused on people's possibility to become creative actors and agents of their own development and of their life. The transmission of research results in the scientific field has been traditionally conducted by the researchers in the presence of their peers, their students, or their postgraduate students. But the 21st century calls for a further step in this line of work in order to secure the transference of those results to the field of public policy and for the improvement of quality of life. So now let's speak about public policies. Well, although traditional public policies have been designed in terms of the satisfaction of social or collective rights as an external activity and provided by the state, a change of focus has recently been promoted. Today, public policies need to be focused on human rights, characterized by an attempt to construct a reflective capacity oriented to the development of a type of citizenship not merely involved in political state recognition, but also in a social culture kind. In the public policy circuit, the state has traditionally been an agent of organization and institutionalization, based on the establishment of rules and decisions originated in the public debate between the different agents and their demands or interests. However, the 21st century has witnessed innovative public policy proposals based on human rights, which allow for the possibility of a permanent interaction and adjustment in accordance with the situation and context in which individuals live. The conception of public policies has seen an evolution in the past few years from the traditional perspective, according to which decision flow from the top downwards, with the designs dominating and determining the results, to the inclusion of the influence of other actors, apart from the government, in the definition of problems and the formulation of different alternatives. The features of public policies are stability, adaptability, coordination, coherence, the quality of their implementation, enforcement, and orientations towards public interest, or maybe, yes. But another important thing to consider, that is the concept of public deliberation in the circuit of public policies. Because public deliberation is to be considered an essential part of the public policy process, as the continuous dialogue between actors has tended to ensure sustainability in the achievement of the results. What about the relation between public policies and quality of life? Well, in drawing relationships between quality of life and public policies, we need to remember the work of Haggerty and other colleagues near 20 years ago. They have developed in this opportunity various criteria for determining the validity and usefulness of quality of life theory and indexes to public policy, founded in the idea to help public policymakers develop and accept programs and at all levels of aggregation, having a clear practical purpose to be based on time series to allow periodic monitoring and control, and to be grounded in well-established theory. You can imagine this is quite difficult. Okay, so now our main objectives, this relation between public policies and research results. Well, to speak about the relation between public policies and research results, we will remember the work of Carol Weiss a lot of years ago, again, 1979. This is an important year for the study of the topic we are speaking about. This work was entitled The Many Meanings of Research Utilization. She said, textually, this is a time when more and more social scientists are becoming concerned about making their research useful for public policymakers. And policymakers are displaying spurts of well-publicized concern about the usefulness of the social science research that government funds support. Okay, 40 years ago. Her conclusion was that the time has come when importance must be given not only to an increase in the utilization of research results applied to political decision-making, but also to the increase and improvement of research contributions with political knowledge, the integration of these two things. The same year, the OECD Committee for Scientific and Technological Policy published a report which also constituted an important document for the analysis of the relation between social sciences and the generation of public policies. The report made special emphasis on the fact that one of the major responsibilities of political decision makers, and researchers too, is the development of a mutual understanding of each other's tasks. Well, but the time passed and we arrived to the 21st century, but the situation really doesn't change. We didn't resolve the problem. So what to do? Okay. A few years ago, Crew and Young said that there are three major dimensions to consider regarding the impact of research on public policy. The first thing to consider is the context, particularly the politics and the institutions, which includes the interests of key policymakers and researchers, structures, and ideologies they were limited by. whether the policy changes were reformist or radical, how organizational pressures operated, and to what extent policies were adapted, developed, or distorted when put into practice. The second one, the evidence, credibility and communication, which implies investigating the impact of research findings, raising questions about the credibility of the research that has made some impact and the way in which it was communicated to policymakers. And the third things are the links between influence and legitimacy, which are important to find out the identity of the key actors, the roles they have played, the links between them, and the extent to which the research methodology has given legitimacy to the findings. So now speak about the relation between researchers and policymakers. The relationship between researchers and policymakers is important first to recognize that both have close personal links with appropriate change of legitimacy to those whom they represent. Researchers should have a higher influence and policymakers could make better use of research. Policymakers as well as researchers and academics need to see eye to eye and take into consideration the social macro and micro dimensions in their daily tasks. Okay, interrelations between researchers and decision makers have been considered a prime factor in analyzing knowledge transfer processes. Analysis of the models of interrelations between researchers and decision makers is relevant when one realizes that the use of scientific knowledge depends largely on certain characteristics of the actors, that is to say, the researcher's behavior and the decision maker's receptiveness. Well, the researchers are persons who related to other persons. Thus, the products generated by those research processes are both socially and historically constructed. From the point of view of social researchers, their objects are not only objects for their observation, but also beings that possesses their own pre-interpreted world and carry out their own observation. They are fellow creatures inserted in a social reality. In the case of policy decision makers, they require quantitative and qualitative indicators to obtain the information they supply. If they are to generate public policies that not only cater for the person's external living conditions, but also to their quality of life in a multidimensional terms. In this matter, we coincide with Van Hoven, who expressed that public policies are not merely limited to material issues, but are also extensive to affairs related to people's mentality. There is a considerable difference between what scientists and policymakers consider knowledge, as well as the difference between how that knowledge has been developed or has been obtained. Let's see what Nielsen tells us. Social scientists generally regard knowledge as something that is theoretically and methodologically sound are or defensible. Policymakers see knowledge as the result of an experience. And what about the quality of the research? In relation to the concept of research quality, the rigorousness is the primary quality of characteristics which may help to determine the quality of the research. A rigorous research being the one that is free of fault in design, methods, and interpretation. And the policymakers take a look about it. Nielsen recognized three models of research used by policymakers. Research as data, research as ideas, and research as argumentation. Well, what is research as data? What we consider about it? Well, it is more mechanistic in terms of its application to the problem at hand. Research as ideas is more general, applied to situations in which problems are regarded as complex in nature. And research as argumentation is used when a decision has already been made. And policymakers draw on research to take an advocacy position. So researchers and policymakers consider each other's activity as the act of generating products rather than engaging in processes. Scientific research attempts to focus on the questions so that a clear and crisp answer may be provided. And policymaking considers other variables such as interest, ideology, values, or opinions. The proposal of allied research. Various authors have examined and promoted different ways of improving interrelations between researchers and decision makers, such as collaborative or allied research, Spearman called in that sense, including strategies to improve the knowledge output for decision making. So, consider all these things and summarizing all our ideas. Our first conclusion then to debate with all of you. First, it ought to be borne in mind that scientific arguments are important in policy making, and that policymakers could make more constructive use of research, while researchers could communicate their findings more effectively in order to influence policymaking. Policymaking could be more efficient in attempts to engage well-being if it takes due account of the effect that policies have on people's evaluations of how well their lives are going. Policymakers require the information supplied by quantitative and qualitative indicators if they are to generate public policies that not only cater for such external living conditions, but also for their quality of life in multidimensional terms. In order to increase the relevance of research, policymakers need be able to clearly identify and acquaint researchers with gaps in knowledge and policy priorities that require research. A greater understanding of the policy context by researchers could increase relevance by focusing the research on more useful questions. Collecting information instrumental to policy decisions, and improving the description of the research results and their implications. Well, some strategies to assist in increasing the use of research in policy making. Making research findings more accessible to policymakers is one. Increasing opportunities for interaction between policymaking and researchers. And addressing structural barriers such as research receptivity in policy agency and a lack of incentives to lure academics to link with policy. So this highlights the relevance of research to policy making. Finally, it is important to remark that quality of life offers the possibility of a new theoretical outlook, which aims at working on people's potentialities, on a community anchorage that includes the analysis of the socio-political context, where each person is considered a protagonist. Thus, we can state that quality of life poses a social and political reality, necessarily based on an integrated respect for human rights. So, summing up, with the right level of interaction between researchers and decision makers, the translation of a research findings into actionable policy and programmatic guidance is an achievable goal we can reach to improve our quality of life. So I leave you an invitation to read some papers I have written about it. Then you can consult when you have the record of this webinar. And well, many thanks to join this webinar. We will now open the questions. And well, this is the places where I work today. I direct the Master Program in Social Sciences and the Research Center in Social Sciences of Universidad de Palermo in Argentina. And at the same time, I direct UNICOM, that is the Social Institute in Social Sciences of Universidad Nacional de Lomas de Zamora in Argentina too. Many thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Graciela, for that excellent presentation. We do have some time for questions. If anyone would like to ask a question, just simply, you can either unmute yourself and ask or just type it into the chat bar onto the
yes,
right.
If people can write in the chat, I think it will be better because sometimes it's not so clear what I can listen.
Sure. So just take your cursor down to the chat bar, click chat, and feel free to write a question or comment if you have anything.
Okay. We will wait.
So my question for you, Graciela, could you tell us about your most recent publication?
Well, I put 4 different kinds. One particularly is a chapter for a handbook we have in Springer about particularly the transmission of the research results to the circle of the public policy. Not only, in this case, not only related with quality of life, but now I am trying to write about the focus related to quality of life. So the transmission of the research results of quality of life to the policymaker, no? It's an ideal, I know. It's very difficult. I know there are a lot of different experiences in the world trying to do something like this, not exactly like this, in different countries. Perhaps I participate in some forums about it, but it's difficult really to live these ideas, you know. Ideally is perfect, but then the daily life is very complicated between the researchers and the policymakers.
Absolutely.
Okay. Something speak about the well-being budget introduced by the government of New Zealand. Well, Nuno, hello, how are you? First of all, if the COVID didn't exist, I will visit New Zealand in 2 weeks, but it will not be possible. So unfortunately, I will participate in an online conference where the government of New Zealand will explain this. So then perhaps in 2 or 3 weeks, I can answer in detail your question, because I can listen for the person, what the person that have this idea really write the proposal. Cornelia says that seeing the ambition of both policymakers and researchers to have stakeholders take up their recommendation, what are your thoughts regarding the systematic targeting or emotion and decision-making processes of the audiences? I don't know, Cornelia. I think it is difficult. Well, sometimes the policymakers really consider what happened with the people, because they are trying perhaps to win an election, you know, something like this. But this situation then are not sustainable in the time, no? It's only for a period and then nothing happened. This is the problem. But, well, we are all trying to work and show our products for the policymakers, trying that they can recognize that we can work together and we can do something well together. Even the origin of our aims are different, but we are all, I think, trying to improve the quality of life of the people, of all the people. So Franco asked about thinking about instruments or devices to facilitate public policies and researcher achievement. One can tell us about it. Well, I can tell about my previous experiences. Sometimes what I see in relation with researchers, if the researchers really develop their work inside the university or inside the research center, and they really don't know what is happening in the streets, as I said, no? What is happening with daily life. They can feel what is happening with daily life of the different groups that compose the society, not only one group. Perhaps the results of the researches are very, very good, but they are not so suitable for the policymakers. But if we can bridge the gap between us and we can tell, perhaps in a theoretical way, in a scientific way, what is happening in daily life, perhaps we can find a place when we can work together. No, this is my idea. I am studying more in deep these kind of situations, because in my experience, sometimes when we join together, perhaps we speak different languages. We need to try to resolve these problems, not to be so distant one from another, no? Because we are all living in the same society. So it is important that we can work together. You know about it. Franco is in the screen. He has worked as researcher and as a kind of policy maker too, because he was a lot of years vice dean of an important university. So I think this is the reason he asked me about it.
Francisco, feel free to comment if you wanted to unmute yourself. You're welcome to make any comments.
Oh, thank you, Graciela. Thank you very much.
Okay. No,
it's so that I am worried about Henry Kissinger statement about joint policymakers and researchers. The big trouble between different objectives, different aims. This is I think about a need of a convergence, a joint common objectives, especially about well-being. But I think the principle would be would be a well-being for all. But the problem is how to link the convergence. Uh, you can hear me, between researchers' objectives and policymakers' objectives. Maybe sometimes there are different objectives.
Okay. Okay, Jose Miguel is asking about if I have any idea for quantifying impact of research. Well, then there are only little bibliography about it. But I think we are trying to do this, yes. But first of all, we need really to transfer the impact of research to the circle of the policies, of the public policies. And then we need to develop a research about how many of these experiences are successful or not in the world. Yes, it's an interesting topic to continue working on.
There's another question for you, Graciela, from Jose. Can you put that in the chat bar?
The audience is silent. Perhaps the topic is so difficult for our daily life that they are thinking about what is happening with this process. Okay. Oh, Joe. Thank you, Joe. It's my teacher. So it's I don't know how to say to my teacher. So, well, a good description. Okay. Okay, yes, so one of the basic challenges to develop quality of life indicators that are more proximal to current government institutions. You know a lot about the Joe. You have done a lot of work in different kind of institutions, not, and studied this topic. Well, what I am thinking in about an example, a specific example, for instance, a topic, the quality of life of children, for instance, that is very common. We are always listening in the media about this. But what I identify working with children is that there is not an only possibility, there is no possible and only view to see childhood. So we need different kinds of indicators in relation with the different group of childhoods. If the childs are living in the cities or in the rural space or in another parts of communities, like poor communities or rich communities, and we need to construct different kind of indicators. The idea can be the same, but we need to ask, for instance, in a questionnaire to the children or to the parents of the children, different things, not exactly the same, because if we try to generalize and then we give this to the policymakers, perhaps it's not a good idea. For instance, I am listening 2 days ago about a special study developed in my country about the children in our capital district. And this is like all the children of Argentina. This is not true. These kind of indicators are interesting, are suitable for our children in the capital district, but in the other provinces with another kind of problems are not interested in this kind of indicators. So I again point out about the necessity to know really and to feel people's daily life, not only to be inside our buildings trying to understand and theorize. This theory is very important, but it must be in relation with people's lives, really, and their feelings. Thank you for your question, Joe.
I think we have one question that we passed over from Jose. It says, do you have any ideas for quantifying impact of research? Do you think measuring impact should be a good standard practice?
I answer Jose Miguel about the impact of the research, but I don't know if there is another question.
It's right before Joe's comment.
Okay.
On the
Yes.
chat box.
Yes, I answer him, but I don't know if someone more. We have people from different countries, no?
We have people from all over the world.
Yes, this is extraordinary. Thank you very much.
Very exciting. Does anyone have any other questions? We do have some time. Don't forget to type it in the chat bar or unmute yourself and ask. Okay.
I don't know. If all is clear, do you need me to clarify some concept?
Of course, of course.
I think all is clear.
All is clear. Go ahead.
It's an idealistic webinar, you know, but I try to show you the history of the topic too, because sometimes when I begin to study this topic, because first of all, I suffered this topic as social worker. You know, I am a social worker and my degrees, my postgraduate are in political science. And so I am a way or a person that mixed the two things in my two professions now, you know. And when I decided to begin to study this some years ago, I noticed the difficulty, first of all, to find bibliography, that authors that speak about these kind of things. And there are only a few, there are little experience in these kind of things. And I think it's very important what Jose Miguel said, that because we need all to make a big research about it and to quantify the result of these kinds of research. I am in my way now trying to do this.
And Graciela, just one last point. Are you accepting publications or papers for your handbook or for any of your publications?
Yes, if we go, give me a minute, if we can go again to this, I will go and I show the people the, if I can quickly. This one, traditional academic presentation of research findings and public policies, is in the editor of the handbook. This handbook of research method in health social sciences is a colleague called Pranelli and Pouton. This is one of the chapters. The other one is one of the chapters of my last book, recently published. The book is Teaching Quality of Life in Different Domains, and this chapter is the importance of teaching quality of life theory and methodology in social science programs. The other one is one of the topics I wrote to the Encyclopedia of Quality of Life and Well-being that the editor-in-chief was in the first edition, Dr. Alex Michalos, and this topic is connected with the topic we are speaking about today, satisfaction with democracy. And then another one of my books, Qualitative Studies in Quality of Life, Methodology and Practice. There is one chapter particularly that is entitled Integration of Qualitative and Quantitative Methods in Quality of Life Studies. But the people that are attending the webinar, I put my mail, so you can write to me in case you need more information, if you are interested in continuing speaking with me about this topic, yes? I am very happy to answer all the questions. Well, but perhaps sometimes with this kind of topics that are not daily topics we are speaking about or researching, if that, as we have the possibility to see the presentation again, because it's in the resources of ISQOLS, perhaps someone see it again and then say, well, I need to ask this question, so I will be available to answer, no problem.
Wonderful. And as a reminder, we'll be sending the link for this recording on our YouTube page as soon as it's uploaded, as well as I'll send out your presentation and your email so they can continue.
Okay, thank you.
Well, wonderful. I think that is the end of our webinar, as there's no more questions or any comments. So
No.
Thank you so much, Graciela.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. You, Sheila, and thank you very much. There are some people that say thank you, so perhaps they will.
I have a question.
Okay, Ray. Where are you from?
Well, I live in Madrid, but I'm from Kuwait. I have a question
Okay.
about the relationship between the policy makers and the local, let's say, residents. I was reading about the quality of life, the case of when they have a problem with change. The government wants to put a public policy and the local people resist. They don't want change. How can we solve this situation when there is a resistance from local people and the government wants to improve their conditions or the situation?
Okay, well, this is not exactly what today we are speaking about, but I will answer you as social worker, yes, because this is a situation sometimes, some years ago, I work with, yes, because I work with different kinds of publication in my life as social worker, and sometimes I need to work with the people, with different groups in relation with the government. This is really a work that the teams, the professionals teams have to develop, I think, more than the researchers. Yes, the researchers can help, of course, if they have research about these groups, but if not, it's a work that the social workers, perhaps social workers at the communities, in some communities there are schools or hospitals or some kind of organization where established social workers, and they are the professionals that work with the special groups and with groups with different ideas or cultures or religiosity. But it's a specification. We are speaking now about the general situation where the researchers and the policymakers need to work together in all the situations. There we need the specialists in each kind of situations. I think we have at this course specialist colleagues in migration and work with migration groups and different cultures. And I think perhaps you can find, I don't know if Jill remember this or no, but perhaps we can send him the information of some of our colleagues that work with groups of migrants and have this, and perhaps they have this problem in relation with the government.
Yes, we can certainly either put out a call or a search.
Yes, because it's an expertise, it's not mine.
Sure, sure.
Okay, we are near to the time to finish. I don't know if there is another question.
I don't think so. So
okay. Okay, so we will say goodbye to all the people. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. And well, I will continue with Jill in a minute. So thank you, bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Chao,
And take care because of the COVID.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.